Um, so thanks everyone for attending today's session. And um, my name is Dr. Wei Wu. I'm from Fresno State Construction Management. And today I'm going to share with you some experience in terms of how we actually leverage technology as well as open educational resource in promoting students' career preparedness. We're trying to use projects it's actually called $300 House Challenge projects. It is in the undergraduate AEC construction management curriculum, and we're trying to blend the technical components as well as the social emotional learning components into the projects. And our hope is trying to promote early engagement of our students in our program and trying to teach them about professional practices through hands-on experience. And also we want to promote their career interest in our specific discipline. A little bit about me. I graduated from University of Florida in 2010 in College of Design, Construction, and Planning, and I joined Georgia Southern in 2010 and taught 3 years over there. I came to Fresno State in 2013, and I spent about 7 years at Fresno State in Construction Management Department. My research area is building information modeling and construction graphics, construction management education, and I teach undergraduate courses in construction graphics, construction documentation, and construction contracts, design, build, project delivery, capstone, as well as building information modeling. I had my email address as well as my telephone number down here if you would like to reach out to me. Today's talk is really going to be fairly straightforward. We're going to talk a little bit about the background information, what is missing in AEC education as an educator from the educator's perspective. And I'm going to describe the $300 House project itself, what it is about, and what kind of learning students I expect to gain, and what the kind of experience, why we believe that such experience could actually promote students' engagement as well as their career interest, and chat a little bit about the results and findings and some of the lessons learned, and then we can open up for audience questions and answers. So the grand challenge, as we see that in our industry, when I say our industry, I'm referring to the architecture, engineering, and construction industry. We are facing a pretty severe shortage of skilled workers. Part of the reason is because baby boomers are retiring, and the new generation doesn't really see construction management or actually see the whole AEC industry as an attractive career choice for them. In the meantime, we have a lot of transformation in terms of technology, and that has been reshaping the type of skill sets required for our future workforce. Emerging technology such as VDC, virtual design construction, field information modeling, and all the visualization technology, including virtual reality, augmented reality, mixed reality, and also we see there's a boom in terms of data analytics. Internet of Things, big data, artificial intelligence in general has been buzzwords in our industry. There's also this era of connectedness. We see the obviously the wide spread of a social network, the communication, the collaboration. A lot of people talk about leadership as well as ethics, which are those topics we don't really typically address in a typical AEC curriculum. So then we know that higher education is very effective in conveying certain types of knowledge, I would say, things about facts, things about equations and fundamentals, how things work, but not so much about tacit knowledge. So when we say tacit knowledge, it really is, you can look at the chart on your right-hand side that the tacit knowledge really refers to technical know-how, things that students actually experience, and the independent thinking, and the specific ability to deal with situations, to be able to actually solve problems, and as well as their value systems, what they believe, what do they hold true, and what kind of life goals do they actually value most. There's also a lack of apprenticeship ingredients in our curriculum. We do we do actually emphasize a lot in terms of hands-on experience, but we don't really know much about apprenticeship training in terms of how we actually prepare students for a work-specific type of competency. So the problem end up actually showing up is actually we see there's a very low level of engagement to attract our younger generation. In the academia arena, that we have this initiative at the whole CSU, which is California State University System. We have an initiative called graduation, initiative, student success initiative, actually, as a matter of fact. We are looking towards promoting students' graduation rates. We want to, improve our 4-year and 6-year graduation rates. Honestly, that is a great goal, but when the faculty members get together, discuss about those, we see that as good as the numbers look like, the more important thing is not only they have to graduate, but also they have to graduate with confidence that they actually can get a job. So that's the kind of student success we think is even more important than simply graduation rates. So we also see over the years, as we are doing educational research in our specific disciplines, we see there is multiple dimensions of the AEC education. We see the technical aspects of it, typically taught in the classroom, graphics, plan reading, contract specifications, building materials and systems, quantity takeoff, cost estimating, all those are regarded as the fundamentals to our specific industry. In the meantime, we have heard about employers' expectation on our recent graduates. Oftentimes, they compliment our students for their technical skills, for their working ethic, and they like that the fact that they could actually conducting critical thinking and be able to resolve problems. And over the years, we've heard about our students are pretty weak in terms of oral and written communication, and they don't seem to understand teamwork or leadership that well. And of course, there is like a lack of social interaction and empathy from what they perform in the field. They seem to actually have a hard time to dealing with relationship building, whether or not it's actually between the contractors with the owners team, or the contractors with subcontractors, or even the contractors with the community. There's also a lack of understanding about professionalism and the code of ethics. What is regarded as the ethical standards in our industry? What is regarded as professionalism? And those are things that our employers talk to us, saying you may want to do something over there. So that actually brings this question such as, how do we actually promote both technical and social emotional learning in undergraduate AEC curriculum? And how do we actually promote students a sense of belonging and awareness of professional identity at an early stage? The question we ask here is trying to understand, when students come into the construction management program, when they chose this major, may not be actually because they actually truly understand what this major means, or actually what kind of jobs they will actually get eventually. It's most about, the parents tell them they need to go to college, to try different, subjects, and to find out construction management actually may be, a more viable one, because there's no such high level of mathematics requirements, and there's not a whole lot of physics requirements, and it's sent to be easier to pass. Over the years, we actually got a lot of students that joined construction management before that reason, and of course they're going to struggle, right? Because it's not really that easy, and in terms of all the other fundamentals, still have to do their due diligence. So we wanted to find out exactly what is motivating factor behind when they actually come to the program. What little things that going through their experience that actually motivate them or encourage them to stay in our program, and what little things that they have done, they have talked about, they have experienced, actually make them to make that final decision that they're going to pursue a career in our industry. So those are things we're really, really interested in. And because of the fact that there's a lot of educational research, especially Dr. George D. Koo, he had this student engagement theory that believes the level of engagement of students in their field of study is directly linked with their academic performance, and the faculty-student interaction, or actually the kind of high impact educational practices such as service learning, such as undergraduate research, such as project-based learning, it actually is positively correlated to their decision to actually pursue a career in that field. So this is kind of why what we want to do with this $300 house challenge. We're trying to design a technology enhanced and a community engaged experiential learning experience. So the idea is really not not my original idea. It is actually originally proposed by a business professor and Christian Sarkar from Tuck Business School, as well as VJ Govindaranjan. And they come up with this idea. They actually published a series of articles in Harvard Business Review. I run into their articles maybe like, I don't know, maybe 5 or 6 years ago, when I first got to, think about projects in my graphics class. I tried to do something more interesting for students. We come into this idea, and the goal is trying to design a $300 house. That actually can accommodate people, provide specific or actually fundamental functionality, so that way they can actually stay there and actually be able to actually get on their knees, etc. Originally, they also designed this for extremely poor areas such as West Sahara areas and slum down areas in West India and some other places. They also look into use those type of design thinking for disaster recovery, such as Haiti, earthquakes, etc. We borrow those concepts and we only look at a fraction of the whole big framework they proposed. Of course, they look at a lot of things more than just design. They look at financial, marketing, business, policymaking, etc., etc. But we want to look at really the design aspects as engineers, construction management, professionals or students. What can we do to help pursue or actually move this concept forward? So a little bit of background about why we choose to do this for a specific targeted group of people, homeless. Well, obviously, homeless has been a national matter, and that has caused a lot of social discussions and a lot of other sort of conversations around. In the U.S., currently we have about more than close to 600,000 homeless people, and California, the state of California alone, has 151,000. And among those 151,000 homeless people, 71.7% of them are unsheltered. So not only they are homeless, they don't even have a shelter. Which is really, really pretty, shocking to us. So we bring those statistics to our students, and all of a sudden they realize, wow, this is actually something we haven't thought about. The number is pretty, shocking, as I said, and they all of a sudden they got hooked up. They want to do something there, see if actually they can come up with something and be able to actually use their knowledge, use their passion to make a difference, basically. And also, we start to question about, ask about why previous efforts were ineffective, right? When we actually, with so many, sociologists and economists and all those designers, what happened there that made our previous efforts ineffective? There is people summarize those, inefficiencies because of bad design, because of substandard quality. Yet, even the bad design, it's still expensive. It's unsustainable in terms of financially, and they're not environmentally aware, and they don't really, they're not social responsive either. Another thing, there's actually a lesson, or actually something my students find out is actually they did some, research there, and they find out actually the biggest problem is really the attitudes, right? The attitudes towards homeless. And this picture here pretty much shows exactly what it is. When you actually look at homeless on the streets, what immediately comes into your mind, have we ever thought about, put ourselves in their shoes to think about, what else can be done in addition to say, we need to do something towards them. So those are the things that we have been thinking about. And the project is really itself is a challenge, as we see, because obviously designing a house with $300 as a budget is extremely challenging, if it's not impossible, right? The idea is really we're trying to make it aspirational, right? We're trying to push the limits, push students actually to the limits that what the cheapest design can come up with, right? How do you think outside the box? We want them to actually to look into different options, going beyond the traditional way of design and building, obviously. So those are the specific sort of aspects we look into. It's a notion. Let's put this in a simplest manner. It's a notion that it indicates a certain type of low-cost expectation. When students think about, when we put this $300 house in the context of a society, when look at construction, urban infrastructures and municipal governance and finance, banking and subsidy, all those things they can actually relate it to. And what can you do as an absolute necessary components of the design itself. So that way you say, we can actually make this work. So somebody currently is unsheltered, who is actually homeless, could actually get benefits from this type of design. So we create this criteria, and we implement or actually integrate these projects in our undergraduate lower division class, which is the consumer graphics class. Usually in that class, we have about 40 freshman, sophomore students with various majors. They have, they typically are from construction management, architecture studies, civil engineering, or sometimes also get pre-business students as well as mechanical engineering students there. But put them into teams, and obviously this project is pretty complex, and it will be very challenging to do that independently. Besides, we really want to see how they actually work as a team together anyway. The project lasts about 5 or 6 weeks there. We'll give them sort of like a criteria, and of course, we're trying to be less, prescriptive. We want to give them criteria that are more like performance-based criteria, so that way they can actually keep in mind what they need to pay attention to. So design can be constructed under $300. Of course, it only count towards the materials, not labor. And the structure size has to be no smaller than 7.5 feet by 7.5 feet. A space to sleep and cook, access to light, access to drinking water, access to electricity, and constructed with durable materials and secure from animals and criminal elements there. And also be certain type of firing and resistance to other natural disasters. And we kind of like strip away the sanitation, because that sanitation whole part is not the part of the consideration, because of the fact that sanitation adds a lot of uncertainty to the design itself. And also, we originally had this idea is trying to create a $300 house community that the sanitation will be available in the community house. So that's the reason. So kind of like, make sure that our students would not be so bothered with that sanitation or plumbing aspects of the design. When it comes to pedagogy, we really look into two related learning theory there. One is experiential learning, which is really according to David Kolb back in 1984, when he stated that learning is the process whereby knowledge is created through the transformation of experience. And look at the different cycles there. We have the concrete experience cycle, reflective observation, abstract conceptualization, as well as active experimentation. So that's the learning process there. From the project design perspective, we really trying to borrow the gold standard from the project-based learning institute. This PBL model really starts from the challenging problem all the way around the circles. That help us kind of design a project that is going to yield meaningful outcomes. So we kind of like look at this design. We're trying to reflect back on our $300 house design criteria. We look at challenging problem, and of course, $300 house. $300 itself is a huge challenge. And a sustained inquiry, and obviously this is going to be a continuous process that students going to have that kind of thinking process through the whole journey when they actually pursue an undergraduate degree in construction management here. Now, authenticity, this is a real, very relevant social issue to face on a daily basis. And student voice and choices, and the project itself enable them to make their own choices and make their voice to be heard, because they will have a chance to apply what they have learned into this projects. Reflection, we ask the students to actually conduct continuous reflection about what do they learn, what do they find out, there's some new things they have never thought about, whether or not it's actually new skill sets or a new outcome, or actually a new meaning or new interest that they pursue as a career. And critiques and revisions, we did involve a lot of local professionals into classrooms, and we encourage students to interact with the industry people, and they actually look for materials, look for design critiques from our industry advisory board members and our partners. And public products, they have to do a final exhibit and like a report out. They have to create a project poster, and they do some mock-ups there and present the results to our partners locally, and as well as our faculty member and industry professionals as well. So those two theories kind of help us to frame our learning process and help the pedagogical design aspect. So starting the first part is getting the experience. So we partner up with our local nonprofit organizations. One is Dakota Eco Garden, which is one of those unique type of homeless shelter that was started by Nancy and Jerry, two of them. Nancy basically bought this property and turned that into a homeless shelter by herself, and Jerry has been managing that property, like 2 decades ago. And we also had a Parilla House, which is a state-funded, well, actually not state-funded, but mostly like a financial and charity-funded homeless shelter. It's much bigger and has a lot of impacts in the local area. So we actually asked the students to actually conduct a site visit. So they actually get a chance to talk to Nancy and Jerry and look at the actually homeless shelter company that built on the site. And they also get a chance to talk to our homeless residents who actually currently stay there, listen to their stories, how they actually end up being homeless, and what happened in their life, what are they looking for now, what kind of living conditions they think it's going to be viable for them as homeless, etc. So they have that kind of direct, firsthand information, confront those homeless directly. And also, we look at some prototypes that are built by local architecture firms. This is a house built by a very famous local architect, Art Dyson, and soon take a look at that, get some inspirations there. And we also visit the Parilla House, and we actually, as a department, construction management, built our senior capstone parties. Students build actually a homeless shelter, also designed by Art Dyson and donated to the Parilla House. So this unique little house here is it's very interesting design there. And students took a look at that, and they also got a chance to ask different groups of residents about their needs, and also what matters to them if they want to move on in life and they want to be back to the workforce and actually get their life back, that kind of experience. So those provide extremely valuable information. And also for a lot of our students, this is really something completely brand new to them. They have never thought about this issue. They've never actually talked to homeless. They've never been to a homeless shelter place either. So then bring that kind of firsthand, fresh memory, come back to the classroom, and we invited our local architect to the classroom, talk about their efforts. And the architect here, Art Dyson, and he has been working on an initiative called Eco Village in Fresno area for about 2 to 3 decades. And his vision is trying to create exactly what we described a moment ago: is create a community, and with those well-designed, low-cost homeless shelter to help the homeless, to train them and to help them to get back on their feet, be able to actually gain skills, get trained, and move on and find employment. And those are things that he's really passionate about. So he brings students those direct, expertise in homeless design. And also his assistant and also an architect, Mayuko, is also helping us bring their experience, bring their professional expertise into the classroom. So after that, students start to do some abstract conceptualization, right? They have to brainstorm the experience. They try to make sense of their experience and trying to do some map mapping as well as some experimentation. They start to drafting things. Look at the design, look at the materials. How we can actually be more creative. Obviously, if we use traditional lumber, timber, and concrete and brick, those are going to be extremely expensive. So what can we do? What else can we actually use as building materials? How would you resolve some other design issues, etc. So start to do those design. And then they also get for some reason they figure out not only we have to understand how to actually create the design, but also we have to have a better understanding about how materials work. So just without even the words from me, they spontaneously start to visit local department stores such as Home Depot, and they start together. They go to Home Depot, go to Lowe's, and check out price materials, look at different sort of building materials, and trying to get a sense of how much does things cost. And it becomes extremely self-motivated to a certain degree. So to me, I was very thrilled to find out our students are actually doing something like this. And of course, and there are even more students actually even more interesting, more inspiring things I get from my students is actually they start to all of a sudden they have never taken cost estimating class, they're never taken scheduling class because of the needs of the projects. They start to know those fundamentals about compiling, costs. They know how to do budget. They know how to do actually schedule things up. So it's all really spontaneously. They learn from each other and they dig it out, and they become so much more self-motivated than ever before. So stop here. I wanted to talk a little bit about, from my end. So my students are doing all those wonderful things. So as a professor, as an instructor, how do I prepare myself to support them better navigating through those projects? So we leverage quite a bit of technology in this case. As a university, we use Canvas as a learning management system. We teach, in this class specifically, we teach students how to use Autodesk Revit, teach about, SketchUp, and we rely on, of course, Sun Professor, and huge help to our students in terms of help them to understand 3D spatial reasoning and understand how to actually refine their Autodesk Revit skills and sketchbook skills, etc. And also we use a little bit like LinkedIn Learning, and we use Google, the educational suite, for collaboration purposes. Student teams, they use Google Drive to share files, they create posters together, slides together, work on budget together, and compile their portfolio together, etc. So with that, really, we want to engage students. It looks like the project is working very well in terms of engagement, and but in the same time, we want to make sure that everyone, will be enjoying, or actually will take advantage of the projects at a, almost like the highest possible level. So as an instructor, I do this weekly little talks to each individual groups there, check on their progress, talk to their project leaders in terms of the needs, and we do progress report, make sure that they're on track. We also use really simple Excel sheets to track the hours, how many hours they actually put into this project. So that way we have a sense about the effort put into this projects. So then towards the end, like I said, after about 2 to 3 weeks, they get those experience, they get some raw data, they start to design, they start to actually refine their designs, and they get critiques from the industry professionals. Then finally, towards the very last week of the semester, they have to showcase their design. So we ask them to create posters. They create student posters and showcase the design, talk about concepts, what's the overview, what they come up with this, what's the cost, what's the specs, and what the rendering looks like, what the concepts, etc., what the reflections as well. So over the years, we have so many interesting design ideas. And personally, I like this most. This is actually a concrete, basically this is a concrete mixer drawing. They turn that into, a semi-underground type of structure. And those are actually from the group of construction management, civil engineering, and structural engineering students, which is really unique. We also have some other good design there, and some underground structure there, etc. So over the years, we are simply impressed by the creativity and of our students. And I think a lot of things, it's not even from us teaching them. It's more about, we give them this opportunity to apply the knowledge and in something they're really passionate about. And those come out of that, passion, that dedication. Then they actually have to do a final presentation, a poster exhibit. So we invite our partners, and they share the design with their, classmates, and they present their results to our, partners and industry professionals, etc. So that's really the projects. We have done this a couple of years already, and I want to talk a little bit about, the learning assessment aspects of it. Look at the project portfolio, look at the team reflection, look at a little bit about, professional identity survey. So one thing really straightforward in terms of grades, we still use grades. Grades is still a good indicator. The things that you would like to look at on this particular slides here is, as you see there, those yellow, there's red and orange area is really those DFWs, what we call, really the Ds and the fails and the withdrawals, etc. So as you see over the years, with our DFW rates really dropped, quite a bit. And then in recent years, it looks like, it slows down a little bit and picks back a little bit. But I think that's a sign for me as an instructor. That means that, hey, it's about time for us to, improve. Continuous improvements is always really the key. you do something that is effective for several years, then you need to go back and refining experience because the type of students you're facing now is different. Their skill sets are different. The background is different. So we need to stay very sort of active in terms of maintaining, adding new things, and improve the status quo, etc. So that gives me a good hint that we may think about something. But overall, you see the trends is our DFW rates are dropping. Okay. And another thing is we did something, since last spring, we started to do last fall, we started to look into a more quantified measurements in terms of our students' professional identity awareness, right? That's really important because we believe the awareness of the professional identity really is tied with their career choices and their career interests. And eventually, as they when going through our program, it becomes so important that early engagement, early awareness will motivate them to pursue internships. Then they get interaction with the industry professionals and companies, employers. Then the chance of getting hired are much higher. Okay, so in our program, we actually require mandatory internship. And part of the reason is because our industry will pretty much tell us, we would like to hire students with internship experience. If your students do not have internship experience, we would not offer him a full-time job at all. And that's just, pretty much period. That's the case. And so then we start to actually requiring internship in our program. So that's why we want to measure things, right? We use a set of matrix there, and it basically measures all different aspects of what we think our professionals are supposed to have. So we have 6 constructs here, including the framing, solving problems, design, project management, analysis, collaboration, and tinkering. Okay, so we'll look at those 6 big constructs. We had a series of matrices under those different constructs there. And then we measure the pre and post. So students come into the class, we do a pre-test and look at their current, awareness of those different constructs. Then we do a post, assessment, and then look at if there is any difference. As you see here, any number that is more than 0.3 difference of the Likert scales have been marked as green. As you see there in the first semester, we do see quite a bit green and mostly a yellowish. And then the second semester, most of them actually are green. So it tells us that, through this project, it did help them to be more aware of the professional identity. They know what professionals supposed to know about, supposed to do about, and what they supposed to be responsible as, in the longer term. So that helps us to understand, through this type of projects, can we efficiently engage our students in our program? And can we actually motivate them to pursue internships, pursue career opportunities in our field as well? So there's an interesting student reflection. This is just really a fraction of what students have been talking about as projects. And there's some comments kind of motivates me to continue, utilize projects like this in our classroom to help them to get more ready for their intended career. Things like, I became aware of the fact that I was learning in the classroom could be directly applied in a real world situation, such as a housing situation. And things like, I think this project allowed us to use our creative minds to come up with innovative solutions when we came across an issue. That is a learning skill that I will use throughout my career, hopefully. Things like this, I feel like, you're absolutely right. Actually, can't not help, saying that this is right on. That's exactly where we want you guys to go. We want you to think this way. Experience like this kind of exposes you to the whys and to the most fundamental question you should ask yourself when you're trying to pursue a career in this particular fields. What can you do as a professional, not only just for your job, not only just for making money, make a living, but also how about the general community where you are from, right? Things like that. Those are things that are very difficult to teach directly in the classroom setting. And it really has to go through something internally. They have that kind of experience, help them to build up that kind of awareness. And that's something we're strongly interested in. And I think this project's kind of a touch upon that. And also just trying to look at a few summaries. And there is a strong connection among student engagement, academic performance, and career preparedness, as I mentioned in the very beginning. And although I do not have a very accurate, like estimate or statistics, whatever, but I can guarantee, I talked to a lot of students, who left this class and moved up to upper divisions. And as we chat all the time, and a lot of them actually told me that they actually switched major because, as I said, in my CMA team, we had students from civil engineering, architecture studies, business. They switched major because of the experience in these projects. And this is those are the happiest time whenever I hear about something like that. In the meantime, we have students pretty much get internships right away after these projects. Partially because when they finish plan reading, they're kind of ready for internship anyway. But more important is they become more actively trying to pursue internship with companies. So that's another statistics. We don't really have official numbers, but I personally had heard that from our students when our faculty member talking about that as well. Again, civic engagement, real course project that is social response, so really in the sense of enhance the sense of belonging. The challenging problem solving because $300 house by any criteria, it is a challenging project. Those problem solving and creative thinking promote students' metacognition and lead to enhanced self-efficacy. They feel confident, they feel very proud when their projects are being presented to the public, to their friends, their families, get a critique and actually get good feedback. One of my students she is actually a Girl Scout leader, and she won 2016 17 Central Valley Golden Award for Girl Scouts. And part of her exhibits to the Girl Scout Society is actually the projects she did in this class. And they were extremely impressed by that, that experience there. Future knowledge workers should embrace both technical and social emotional skills to be successful. In our industry, really, as our students actually realize, when they first graduate, they work as a field engineer, project engineer. Mostly, they're practicing a lot of technical skills. But as they go up in their career ladder, and they become more aware of that business relationships, leadership, collaboration, working with different group of stakeholders becomes even more important compared with the technical skills. So that's something we want them to be aware, and we want them to be prepared as well. So that kind of concludes my presentation. I think it's 40 minutes about, which is right on time to think. I'd like to open up to questions. I do have my email address here as well as my phone number, and I should actually put my LinkedIn there as well, so you can actually reach out to me if you would like to connect and talk about similar experience you have there. So I wanted to see if we have any questions from the audience. Not sure how you can type your question in the chat area. Let me actually stop sharing. Yeah, so I have a question from Sarah. And how would you suggest go fully online? So the second part of the project was actually completely online. The way we actually get that worked out is because we actually brought the experts, or actually the homeless people, through our Zoom meetings. It is not ideal. Students talk about their experience is not ideal. Obviously, it's not as nice as actually they go there and look for themselves with their own pair of eyes. So I guess there are some other things we're exploring at this point, because we know that in the fall semester we are going to be fully online again. So what I have in my mind is actually we are going to do some sort of video recording as well as some virtual reality aspect. So we wanted to publish our students' design through online platforms, so that way it could be viewed remotely by our industry professionals. They can provide critique. That's something we have been working on. So it's not going to be a too intense technology transformation, but it does have a little more flavor of technology. We're trying to leverage technology to help students, get a little bit more interaction with not only just me as an instructor, but also our other faculty members as well as our industry professionals. There was another question. Oh, in terms of how do we actually help students get internships. Okay, so we do internship in a very interesting way. I personally felt really proud about our career development assistants in the department. So because we mandate internship, so the department we got and realized we need to provide assistance. So we have this semester long um, plan. We invite companies, our employers and sponsors from the past. We have a list of sponsors and employers. We send out an email like through the summer or in the winter break that hey, in the coming semester we have every week we have a Tuesday and Thursday noon that could set up a presentation session with your company. Would you like to sign up? So all they gotta do is sign up. They send a few employees. Usually they send out alumni and bring lunch, simple lunch for students, and they do the presentation and follow up with the presentation. They actually have sign up interview sheets. So students will be notified. We also post those company presentation dates and the time on Facebook page of the department. So they will know on Tuesday and Wednesdays, Tuesday and Thursday, they need to go to the classroom, launch the company presentation, and get your resume ready. We also provide a workshop for resume critique for our students. So that way, students they don't have to do anything extra, by only except for actually attending the workshop presentation and actually sign up for interviews. So that's how we help our students land, sort of like intern opportunity there. So assistance for their work on the long-term good projects like this. Yes. So the time tracking. So what we do, we as a department, we have been fairly experienced in terms of that's trying to respond to Jenny's question. And how do we track students' actual hours? So we work with our partners like Dakota Eco Garden. We have service learning sites set up. So when we actually go send students actually work on those projects there, there was two ways. Self-reporting definitely is one way, and we do actually both. Self-reporting, the captain elected by the team is going to maintain an active work log. And they're going to document every time they have a group meeting, every time they go to the site, every time they actually work together on these projects. He or she is going to document how many hours. Besides, when we actually have students go to the site, work on projects, looking into information and conducting interviews, etc., our partners will have a sheets that we created as an instructor. We send the students these sheets saying that if you go to that site, working a few hours, help out on some work there, you need to have the supervisor over there sign up those sheets. So that way we know how many hours they work. Yes, but you're right. Tracking those efforts is not easy, but once the system is created, it should work out very well. Fresno State has been consistently donating about more than 1 million hours of service learning every year since 2 decades or 3 decades ago. So it has a very mature system in place we can follow. Any other questions? Again, so if you would like to reach out to me, I want to show my, maybe I can share my, I believe that you can actually get my contact information or email address at the session. I don't know. I need to check with Pedro, see if we can actually share my contact information. And I really look forward to actually collaborating with other institutions at this point. Our next steps actually is trying to extend this project to our high school students as well. We have worked in the past. We have worked for the high schools, built small structures and doing some design for homeless work as well. And we definitely want to look into that possibility and with high schools. And if teaching similar classes, it doesn't necessarily have to be construction management. It could be something like marketing, social science, all those different type of subjects. Because as I said, homeless is not a single discipline issue. It is really a broad, very complex social issue that has a lot of different dimensions of interesting things that we can all work on. So that's something I'm looking for as well. I look into possible collaboration with some of you if you would like to do some interesting projects in your class. So I'm going to be hanging here for a little longer. So if you have any question, feel free to type a question here. Otherwise, I think our presentation is completed, and the recording should be available um, after the session. And I do not know how long. I think it's fairly fast. Pedro and Quinn told me that it's supposed to be quite fast after the session. And also, I wanted to point out if you would like to actually have my courseware, and you want to look at the project design or actually matrix for assessment, that kind of thing, you're more than happy to reach out to me. I'll be more than happy to share those with you as well. We have a complete courseware through Canvas. I can actually publish that through the Canvas Common feature. If you're using Canvas as well, we can work out something through Canvas Common. It is very convenient, as a matter of fact, for sharing courseware using Canvas Common. Okay, so if there's no other questions, and I think we can actually conclude the session.